The story is about an ex-soldier on a relentless mission of revenge after uncovering the truth behind her father's murder. The film kicks off with a high-speed chase as Syrian terrorists overturn a U.S. military vehicle, but their retreat turns deadly when they're picked off one by one. As it happens, the American soldiers are not totally vanquished. What's even more shocking is that a female military officer called Parker, a lieutenant, uses her fighting talents to sneak into the elite forces and wipe out all the terrorists. Parker and her colleague Spider plan to apprehend the remaining terrorists and bring them to the camp for questioning. Parker intervenes right away to stop the American soldier who loses control and tries to kill them. In summary, despite a few problems, the task is finished. Parker and Spider go straight to the airbase in order to get back to America. On the way, Parker receives an important call from her friend Jessie, who is a sheriff. After some brief chat, Jessie informs her that a landslide has just occurred in their hometown. Unfortunately, Parker's father, who worked in the mining area, was buried under the landslide and lost his life. Parker loses her voice at this and starts crying uncontrollably. After arriving in America, she immediately leaves for home. Parker goes to the police station after arriving to get an explanation from Jessie. Jessie discovered a note intended especially for Parker at the site, but he is sadly unaware of the reason for the landslide. Thus far, Jessie deduces that Parker's father purposefully triggered the landslide to transition to the afterlife. Parker struggles to accept this reality, though, because her father was not the kind to give up lightly or do the unimaginable. Moreover, he seemed fine before he passed away. He even sent her a letter before her mission to Syria. With no other clues, Jessie is forced to close the investigation temporarily. Jessie then takes Parker home, which also functions as a bar. Parker seems to be planning to sell the pub after her father's burial because it's remote from residential areas and is nearly never occupied. Parker finds her father's old picture, when he was a top-level soldier in Mexico, and glances at it. She keeps her late father in her heart and prays for him through weeping eyes. Parker hears an automobile in front of the bar shortly after that when she is alone. A shadowy guy is seen entering surreptitiously. When Parker sees the man's face, she is surprised to learn that he is her old buddy Mickey. She strikes the man without thinking twice. Presumably, Mickey has assisted Parker's father in running the bar and working at the stone quarry since they were teens. Because of this, Parker immediately apologizes for her actions. Parker then asks Mickey about the landslide that killed her father, where she also asks to be taken to the incident site to investigate the suspicious death. They go into her father's cave once they get at the mine site. Her father has been a stone miner to support her since they moved from Mexico. Parker then recalled how her father had taught her martial arts and taken her to play in the cave. Parker is heartbroken by these recollections, especially when she notices her father's blood on the rocks and dirt avalanche. Upon closer inspection, Parker finds what seem to be black explosion scars on the rocks. She believes that the landslide was caused by human activity rather than a natural disaster as a result of this. After returning from the cave, Parker takes a grenade to test her suspicion. Together with Mickey, she looks for a large enough area to detonate the grenade. Parker remembers her late father, who created the tavern to keep her grandmother's traditional recipes alive, as she strolls about. Hence, the bar was called Maria's, derived from the initial name of her grandmother. Sadly, Parker's duties as an elite forces member prevented her from continuing to manage the pub. Parker eventually locates a good spot to confirm her suspicions after some time. She lets go of the grenade in a single breath, and sure enough, the dark streaks left by the explosion appear on the broken pebbles. Parker wonders, nevertheless, how someone could so brutally murder her father. Mickey, not wanting his friend to be stressed, invites Parker to a bar in the city. According to him, she needs some entertainment to relieve her stress. Upon arriving at the place, Parker meets a man named Elvis, who is Jessie's younger brother. But Elvis is a jerk who enjoys making out with ladies. Parker, thankfully, is able to control her feelings. Parker and Mickey make the decision to head home as the night wears on. They see several shady persons and an automobile outside the pub. These people also had guns in the back of their automobile. They decide to follow them to their destination out of curiosity. They unexpectedly reveal themselves as a group of thieves preparing to steal merchandise and cash from a hardware store. Seeing this, Mickey advises Parker to stay out of it, given that they both carry guns. But as a good public servant, Parker bravely goes in alone, unarmed, and takes down all the robbers there in a short time. Parker is able to defeat all the robbers and sees a watch that is familiar to her. It transpires that her uncle owns the watch. Parker returns the item right away as a result. After that, her uncle praises her and offers his sorrow for Parker's father's passing. Her uncle also extends his apology for not being able to assist her at this time. Parker hears a distant explosion the next day. Elvis accidentally set off an RPG, which is how the explosion originated. Elvis must have either stolen or smuggled the illegal weapon since, despite America's gun laws, heavier weapons like RPGs are only allowed for military usage. To find evidence, Parker contacts Spider, who besides being great in gunfights, also has extraordinary hacking skills. Not long after, Spider manages to gather a lot of information about Elvis, revealing that he has an illegal arms trade business on the dark web. Elvis has, it turns out, escaped detection for all this time because his senator father has been watching over him. Parker assumes that Elvis is responsible for her father's passing as soon as she hears Spider's explanation. Spider advises Parker to exercise caution and hold off on acting until there is conclusive proof before moving forward. The following day, Parker heeds Spider's instructions to hunt for more hints and proof, and she pursues Elvis and his goons to the closest military installation. It turns out that Elvis and his henchmen have access there, thanks to the influence of his father and possibly their collaboration with corrupt soldiers stealing weapons from the military warehouse. Parker follows up with Mickey and his mother to learn more about Elvis, particularly because Mickey's mother has a reputation for spreading rumors among the locals. Regretfully, none of them has any knowledge of the armaments trade. All they know is that because of his father's influence as a senator, Elvis always disobeys the law and believes he is above the law. Soon later, Spider tells Parker that armed thugs are going to guard Elvis and his goons as they prepare to conduct business at his residence. Parker cautiously slips inside and observes the illicit exchange. It turns out that the buyer of Elvis's weapons is a leader of a mass organization that often causes chaos in America. That night, Parker invites Jessie to drink at her house while reminiscing about their high school days. In summary, excessive drinking causes them to nod off. Parker awakens throughout the night and seizes the opportunity to take the police station keys from Jessie. Then Parker slips in to investigate the death of her father. After gathering all the evidence in Jessie's office, Parker enters the autopsy room to see her father's body. Because it was her final night with her father, Parker starts crying excessively at that point. Her father's killer will not live, she vowed in her heart. Parker begins to feel a little better a few days after the funeral. Parker receives a dinner invitation from Jessie one evening. Parker is also met by Jessie's father, Ease, who displays haughty behavior as an inept politician. Parker feels deeply uncomfortable when he even subtly makes racist statements about Latinos. Elvis is at the mining site, according to a call Spider gives Parker shortly after. Without wasting any time, she quickly leaves the dinner event. At the mining site, Parker deflates all of Elvis's tires. When entering the cave, she sees Elvis sitting on her late father's couch. Elvis makes even harsher remarks against Latinos in front of his group. Parker loses it at those remarks and becomes irrational. Actually, Parker could kill him easily, but just as she is ready to attack, she witnesses Elvis's goons setting her father's tavern on fire. Parker runs to stop them as a result. Parker kills Elvis's goons, but she is powerless to stop the fire that spreads throughout the building and destroys all of her father's treasured possessions. Enraged, Parker pursued Elvis once more and gave him a severe beating. Sadly, Parker was apprehended by Jessie, who had just arrived, and taken to the police station. It turns out that Jessie had been involved in Elvis's arms trade to fund his father's campaign. Spider dispatched a lawyer to free Parker from prison shortly after. Parker had taken the lives of Elvis's goons, so the attorney needed another line of defense. The lawyer proceeded to the mining site in search of clues, but Jessie intercepted him, and he hasn't been seen since. Since her father had placed CCTV at the mining site, E's family started interrogating Parker in prison the following day, trying to find out whether she had any proof from the time of her father's death. It was then that Ease and his two boys came clean and said they killed Parker's dad. They did so because Parker's father dared to obstruct their arms transactions. Because of this, Ease and his sons were afraid of being reported if Parker had CCTV evidence. Ultimately, Ease proposed a deal in which she would divulge the details of her father's passing in exchange for Parker turning over all of the CCTV footage. Parker went insane after shockingly releasing herself from the restraints. Sadly, Parker was unable to murder the three of them since Ease employed every police officer there. Parker eventually made the decision to take over Jesse's vehicle and make as big of an escape as she could. But on the way, her injuries grew worse and she passed out. In the meanwhile, Elvis and his goon broke into Mickey's home in an attempt to find Parker. However, they couldn't find her, as Mickey and his mother had hidden Parker in the basement. After regaining consciousness, Parker explained that Elvis was the one who caused her father's death. Parker swore to murder him in the most agonizing way possible, no matter what. Jesse had already slain Parker's lawyer. Somewhere, he brought Elvis and the lawyer's body. Much as he would a dead cat, Jesse buried the body. After recuperating from her injuries for 3 days, Parker promptly contacted her contacts to request firearms and ammo. Parker also requested her uncle for some sharp objects. However, Ease and Jesse were observed to be in a panic when the mass organization's leader, who had purchased weaponry from Elvis, asked for his order. However, Elvis still hadn't delivered the weapons. Because of this, the leader threatened to disrupt Ease's campaign if the goods weren't delivered. Ease and Jesse were busy managing their guns trade shortly after the meeting. They had no idea that Parker and Mickey were getting ready to execute their retaliation operation. After everything was under control, Mickey waited outside as Parker crept inside. Parker immediately brought down the Elvis goon who was watching over the living room as he noticed him. She then went upstairs to eliminate Ease. Before acting brutally, Parker again asked about her father's death. At that point, Ease told Parker he had lied to her. Parker's father had learned of the illicit activities at the mining site. Thus, Jesse was the one who shot her father to death. Her father blew up the cave with a grenade as he was dying, but the debris just buried him. Parker instantly went for Jesse and Elvis after finding out this information. After thanking Mickey for all of his assistance, she bid him farewell. Parker then began using her sniper rifle to observe the offenders from a distance. Parker witnessed Spider pulling into the mining site at the same moment. Unfortunately, Elvis's henchmen pointed their guns at him. Not wanting to stand by, Parker sprang into action, but she could not save Spider, who was captured by the enemies. Parker bravely went into the cave by herself to save him, and when she did, she witnessed Jesse and Elvis fighting with the group's head. And their car, laden with weapons, had just exploded, and they still didn't know Parker was responsible. Parker took advantage of the opportunity to save Spider as they were getting ready to grab additional weaponry from the military installation. Parker and Spider saved their buddy, and then they searched the whole mining area for the culprits. Suddenly, an attack split them up and kept them on different sides of the cave. The head of the masked group assaulted Parker while she looked for Spider. Despite defeating him, Parker was ambushed by Elvis, who appeared with a shotgun. During the fight, Elvis taunted Parker with highly racist insults, which enraged her. In no time, she was able to take down Elvis. Parker had already massacred everyone in the cave when Mickey, her uncle, and other people arrived to assist her. Parker rescued Spider from the debris on the other side of the cave before searching for Jesse. Parker then dug down a tunnel that led straight to the military weapon storage where Jesse was hiding. Parker was permitted to go farther inside after feigning weakness and the need for medical attention. She said she had been attacked by terrorists in the desert. Parker hurriedly looked for Jesse, who she thought was hiding in the depot, while the troops were preparing medical supplies. Parker tackled the crooked officer right away after noticing him. In the middle of the fight, Jesse suddenly pulled the pin of a grenade he was holding and expressed his deep remorse for killing Parker's father, whom he considered like his own. It turned out Jesse was forced to kill him due to pressure from his family. To make up for all his transgressions, Jesse made the unimaginable decision. Parker was still willing to give her buddy a chance at that point, but his guilt was too great. Parker was experiencing emotional instability after seeing Jesse's demise. Parker was glad that her father's killer had gotten his just desserts, but she still found it hard to believe that Jesse was the one who had done such a horrible thing to her father. A month later, radio news announced the terrible death of the entire Ease family. Parker asked Mickey to take care of her pub while she restored it. Afterward, Parker and Spider planned to return to the central military base to undertake their next mission. The film ends.